Welcome to Building Bellingham. I'm your host, Leo Cohen. Season 2 is starting off a little different than Season 1. We're not in the studio and our conversations are live streamed onto the Building Bellingham Facebook page before they make their way here. We're a little rougher around the edges, but the core is the same. Honest conversations with local entrepreneurs, talking about challenges, failures, and the effort it takes to build a successful business. Join me as we dive into the story behind one of Bellingham's biggest brands. Erin, hello.
Leo, hello.
You are in your natural environment.
I'm in my natural habitat. I thought I would share that with all of you. I'm in the R&D kitchen where I also have an office, and then I also have my R&D kitchen here, and it's really where I spend most of my time when I'm not on my feet all over the bakery every day.
So for those of you who don't know Erin, this is Erin Baker, and she has Erin Baker's Wholesome Baked Goods. And so if you've been on an airplane, specifically Delta or American Airlines, if you've been to Costco, which I think 99% of humans have been to Costco, grocery stores, coffee shops, you're going to see Erin Baker's breakfast cookies. And that's just one of your products, but that is probably your staple. And there's a history to it that we're going to go through today, which I'm super excited for. So thank you for joining us on the Building Bellingham podcast, the feature-length.
Entirely my pleasure.
So we are on season 2. This is episode 2. Erin, who are you? Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about you.
Born and raised in Washington State, born in Spokane, and then raised in the San Juan Islands, mostly on Orcas Island. I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area when I was about 12 years old and spent about 10 years there before I moved back to Washington. In the San Francisco Bay Area, I gained a lot of experience in the food and beverage world, and it really introduced me to fine cuisine, fine wine. I was working for this great restaurant group. My mom's favorite restaurant was Chez Panisse. That's Alice Waters. Alice Waters started the new cuisine, California cuisine movement. So I was really, marinated in the idea that food should be simple, it should be fresh, and we should nourish our bodies with what we put in our mouths. And, I came back to Washington after California it was very expensive, and I really wanted to come back to my roots, and I moved back to Whidbey Island, and that is where I started Erin Baker's Wholesome Baked Goods.
Yeah, and you mentioned something about wanting to have fresh, wholesome nutrients in your food. Is there a problem in America right now with how food is consumed and how it's processed? Did that kind of negative side of our food industry propel you into wanting to distribute better nutrients to people?
Absolutely. My mom raised us on whole food. She baked our bread. She grew our vegetables and canned and dried, along with working a job as well. She really taught that the kitchen was definitely a classroom for me. I spent a lot of time in the kitchen with my mom, and she would tell me what she was doing and why she was doing it. She said there's always a place for a little bit of sugar, a little bit of butter. There's always a place for a Coca-Cola, but not as a regular thing. And so I was really infused with the ideals that we have today. And that is, there's a time and a place for dessert. There's a time and a place for a soda, and a taco. But for the most part, I eat for sustenance. And then I, like I say, I party on the weekends, or, if I go to a party, I eat, some food that's not that great for me, but it's really enjoyable. So that's really the premise that I started my business. And I wanted to bring healthier packaged food to America. And in 1994, there were 45 million Americans that were not eating breakfast on a regular basis. I had identified, 45 million Americans. Now I don't even know the statistic now. It's probably like 60, 65. Last time I looked, it was like 58. So breakfast is a tough one for people. I think, everyone's in a hurry, number one. Number two, I don't know. I'm not a big breakfast eater, and that's really why the breakfast cookie resonated with me so much. When I was little, my mom used to make an oatmeal cake, and she would put all the brown fruit in it. And that's really what inspired the breakfast cookie was, this dense oat nutrition sweetened with fruit, and she'd send us out the door and be gone for hours with this, with this really energy packed, snack to go. So that's really what inspired the breakfast cookie. And, 27 years ago, it was kind of a hard sell until I'm like, just try it. It tastes good. And, the breakfast cookie has propelled forward on its own steam. Once people try it, they love it. And we've had customers for 27 years.
So what is that moment like? So there's kind of a tipping point, right? There's a point where and this is where the blue bite comes into play, right? There's a tipping point where let's say you're doing one action and you're getting 10% of the result. You're out there, you're grinding, people eat the cookie. They're like, where do I find this? And then you're like, well, I don't have my website up, or this, that, or the other. There's this like pre-tipping point as a business owner. Tell me a little bit more about how much energy goes into that pre-tipping point, and what is that tipping point like? And have there been multiple tipping points for you as you've propelled your business?
Yeah. Well, the energy that goes, from when you have the dream, right? I had the dream, this is what I'm going to do, to actually making enough money to support myself. It was a while. It was 5 years. And I worked 2 other jobs while I was baking at night. And, my days for 5 years, I was working 14, 16 hours a day. And you just do what it takes. There isn't anybody to complain to, there isn't anybody to be like, hey, I need a day off. Woo. It's all you, it's all your own steam. And I did whatever it took, and it took a lot, but it was my dream, and it was mine. And that really propelled me forward. The tipping point for me, the first tipping point for me, was getting the cookies into a couple of grocery stores in Seattle. One of them was QFC. Most people in the state are familiar. Yeah, QFC was my first real grocery store account, Kroger holding. And, things really started to take off from there. Once they kind of got into the city, and, there was more word of mouth, and things really grew very fast from there. People were like, this cookie's amazing. It's filling me up. It's healthy. It's delicious. Where can I get more? And at the time, this was, 98, maybe 97. And I didn't even have a website. I don't even think I had a website. So I was just taking phone orders, and it was great. It really just kind of exploded. And that's when things really took off, was, like 98, 99, 2000. So that was the first tipping point.
So comparing to starting a business now versus starting a business when you did, that's a whole separate job. So you're already working 14 to 16 hours, and then you're also answering phones once this was just starting to really get some momentum.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think there would be a different world if you had started your business 5 years ago, when internet, you have these landing pages with, Shopify and Squarespace and all these things? Do you think it would have been a different world for you to start this business then? Or do you think it would have been the same thing no matter what? The vision was the same the whole time?
I think the vision would have remained the same. I just probably would have had more opportunities to scale faster. Because people that are starting their businesses now, and, really in the last 15, 20 years, have, the entire country or the whole world to sell to. So I think there's more opportunity now to scale fast. For me, it was, just really kind of bootstrapping, grassroots. And, my mom is an entrepreneur. And so I was pretty familiar with that process and, what it took. So it didn't seem too out of the ordinary for me.
Yeah. So for you and for me and for other entrepreneurs out there that are at some point in their journey, right? Because it's all a journey. There's not really an end result. There's little checkpoints, right? How do you, when you're building a business and it's unique, because what you did was very unique. I have never seen any other, and I'm not just saying this, I've never seen any other breakfast cookies that are as well presented and as delicious as yours are. And the coolest part is that you just had this belief or vision that you were going to make something better than what was out there. Even if people are saying, Erin, cookies shouldn't be healthy. They're like, we need just more
Right.
snickerdoodles in the world. And you're like, no, but there can be a healthy cookie. How do you put those horse blinders on? Tell me more about that process for you. How do you have that steel trap of this vision's going to happen one way or another, whether you have Shopify or not, or whether you have, you know what I mean? Like it's going to happen.
Well, I had good feedback from the beginning. So I didn't have people saying, this cookie isn't very good, and I'd think about something else. That never happened. I had a lot of encouragement from anybody that tried it. They were like, this is delicious and it's healthy. Oh my gosh, it's fantastic. So that definitely propelled me forward. It definitely propelled me forward. And I don't know, for me, I think I love the act of making food for people, and the magic that happens when they eat it and it works for them. It's a very intimate connection. And that's been driving me my entire career, is that desire to want to solve a problem for people. And that problem is, I'm in a hurry. I don't have anything to eat. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to eat a bag of chips. Ew. And that happens more often than you know, or this super sugary granola bar. And the thought that I can help somebody eat something healthier and they can focus on the task at hand, which is their work or their children or, whatever it is they're doing, and not be worried about what they're eating, that's what drives me, is creating solutions for people and helping people.
Finding a product market fit, right? Something that really landed. And, there was a time, it sounds like, where you kind of, the first part of your business hit this wave, which is some of these like trends and some of these fads that were happening in the health and wellness world, right? Between Weight Watchers and Women's World Magazine and the Oprah show. There was a lot of different things that happened for you at that time. Tell me a little bit more about what happened when you hit that wave, and then what happened when those fads or trends
Fell
off, and you're like, okay, back to the drawing board. I got to kind of reset. Tell me about that whole story, that process.
Yeah. So Weight Watchers was just kind of a phenomenon. When I got the cookies into the grocery stores, I had a Weight Watcher member call me, and she's like, these are amazing. Can we order more? And they just, what I guess with the meetings, they would share food items that they liked with each other, and it just kind of spread like wildfire. And I think the point for them was they could find something. The breakfast cookie was filling, it was delicious, and it fell within the right points of that current point system that they really liked. And when something works, it spreads like wildfire, because I certainly wasn't pushing the message with millions of dollars of advertising. I didn't have glossy ads. I didn't have anything but the fact that the cookie was working for these Weight Watchers members. And so when that took hold, I went from like myself and one other person to like 100 people hand scooping cookies as fast as we could within a year.
How much, that was within 1 year, you scaled from you and one other person to 100 people, and space, I'm assuming. And so you have to start hunting for space to lease. How do you scale that fast in a year? Tell me about that. That's crazy.
Well, actually I had to move twice, because it started to hit, and I was in 2,000 square feet. It was my first commercial space. It was below Boundary Bay Brewery. I don't know if it's funny, because Boundary Bay is using it for their hop storage and kind of brew storage, and my handprint is still in the floor, so I go in there sometimes and check it out. It's so cool. So that was my first space, and that was 2,000 square feet, and I'm like, I've got to move. So then we moved to the location on Champion and Railroad. That was 5,000 square feet. We were only there for like 6 months, and it was pretty clear that I had to move again quickly. So then we moved out to the space on Meridian, which was 15,000 square feet. That was all within a year. And it was just the craziest year ever. Now, I will say, there's a term in the business. I don't know if it's in your business, but sales solve everything, right? Mm-hmm. So if your sales are good and you've got money coming in, you can scale. You can, I mean, it's maybe not the most efficient and strategic, but at least you can move, and you can move fast if you've got cash coming in. And, at the time we were selling a lot of cookies. So that was one of the things I'm really grateful for, is that I could afford to do it. And that was something I had never had before. I'd never had capital. I'd never had the opportunity to, make a big move. So to go from 2,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet in a year, and 100 employees was a huge jump. But, we just scaled exactly what we were doing. And then, and then started the search to look for the right type of machine to actually automate the extruding of the dough and the making of the puck to go into the oven.
So you had a good problem, which was you had this huge pent up demand. You had a nice cornered market, which was nutritional, wholesome cookies, and you're scaling super fast. So the interesting part to me is that you're talking about, like, you had good cash flow, you had money coming in for the business, because you're selling, I read a number of, was it 50,000 cookies a day?
Yeah, probably about that. I mean, it was so long.
No idea. You just had dreams of cookies going, like, on a conveyor belt going through your mind, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of cookies. A
lot of cookies. And so the interesting part of what you're talking about is that you had good cash flow. And step one is that you just needed to make the move. You needed to make that move to that space. Good problem, because you have good cash flow. And then the next step is, like, how can we make these systems work better? What was that transition like from going from 2 people to 100 people to saying, okay, we need to automate some of these processes to make this more feasible? What was that process like for you?
Right. Well, at the time, I was having a really hard time finding equipment to extrude the dough, the breakfast cookie dough. The breakfast cookie dough was very unique. There really, at the time, was not anything like it on the market at all. And it's a very nutrient dense dough. Oats are the first ingredient, and prune puree is the third ingredient. And then you've got nuts and dried fruit and seeds and nut butters. And it's a very, very heavy, thick dough. Whereas most cookies that were being extruded really weren't being extruded, they were being deposited, which means they were just kind of being, a dough depositor, they drop, and it's more of a kind of a batter type consistency. So it just moves through really with ease and not a lot of resistance, because you're just talking about white flour and white sugar and flavoring, basically. And maybe some nuts, maybe some chocolate chips. But I mean,
lucky, right?
we all know what commercial cookies taste like. Think of a Chips Ahoy. That's what kind of equipment was out there. And so I had to find equipment that wasn't necessarily for cookie dough. It was for meat. It was like a meat extruder, and have these machines retrofitted because they had higher horsepower and they could push my dough. So it took a bit to figure all of that out. But we did it pretty fast because, the sun was shining, right? I mean, I never assumed that, when a wave hits, you never want to assume that it's going to last, and you need to plan for the wave to terminate. And so I knew I had to move fast. So it took a little bit, maybe 6 months to get that automated. And then we were able to kind of scale back on the amount of bodies we had in there and have a good amount of people and machines.
So would you say that it's important as an entrepreneur in any industry, you're going to have these surges, you're going to have these times that you're leveling up, there's surges, there's certain fads or trends or markets or whatever it may be, a new market emerges. You're saying you ride that wave, you put your head down and you just grind it out, but you're preparing at the same time for the other side of the wave when the wave crashes, right?
I think that's prudent, yes.
Is there opportunity on the other side of the wave if you prepare correctly?
I think there's always opportunity, and it's absolutely, it's so easy to get used to the good times, the high times, the, cash is rolling in times. But inevitably for, my business is a quarter of a century old. And I have experienced everything from, good times to really, really tough times, and a number of different times, not just once. So the longer your business is around, the more you're going to experience that. And you have to plan for, you plan for the worst and expect for the best.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more, because as an entrepreneur, I pride myself in my failures and learning from other people's failures. I think that they're the best teachers that we could possibly have. Tell me, and for those of you that are out there watching, I would love to hear a little bit more about what are some of your biggest failures and lessons as an entrepreneur, and tell me a little bit about those situations. How did you pivot in that situation? Did you just immediately jump on a solution? Did you sit there and process? How do you operate as an entrepreneur in challenges or failures?
That's a good question, Leo, because, you know, we what we to talk about in the building here in the bakery is, you know, is fail fast. And what that means is we're not afraid to try stuff, but we know that failure is not necessarily, it's trying. And if we don't hit the mark, we try again. And I guess, you know, biggest failures, I don't, as I'm sitting here, I can't really pinpoint any big failures in my career. You know, I've always desired to work collaboratively. That's really what comes most naturally to me. I love to work in a group, and I love to surround myself with wonderful people and people that are smarter than me, and that I can bring my own brilliance, but, you know, others are just as important. And, you know, we've really made great decisions together, moving through, you know, the history of the company. And I don't know. I mean, I wish I had some big juicy failure story, but I just don't. I don't consider anything that we've done here a failure.
More of a lesson than anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's how we learn. You know, it's funny. You know, I watched Anne Marie's interview. You know, she's one of my dearest friends, and, you know, she talked about how she got her MBA, you know, to learn how to run her business, and this is my MBA. You know, my MBA is happening in my business. I didn't go to college. I just got to work. And so the failures are nothing but learning opportunities. And, you know, I would have to say that I pride myself with being conservative, not taking huge risks, and relying on my team to help me make the best decisions possible for everybody in the building. So the failures are learnings.
Yeah, no, I absolutely couldn't agree with you more. One of the things you just talked about is something that really, really resonates with me, which is this concept of this word entrepreneur is like such a glorified term. I like to call it wantrepreneur, right? Because everyone's just like trying to be this like cool startup.
Yeah.
Oh, I have my hand in 10 different fires, right? Whatever, or irons in 10 different fires. But you just mentioned something that really resonates with me, and some of the people that I've interviewed on here have said the same thing, which is an entrepreneur is surrounding themselves with their weakness points, right? Their weak points. And tell me about your team and how they've helped you navigate as an entrepreneur through pretty much everything with their skill sets they add to your world.
Well, my longest time employee, her name is Dawn Ernest, and she's been with the company on October 23rd will be her 20th anniversary.
Wow.
Yep. And Dawn started with us in our customer service department, and now she's our vice president of operations. And, you know, besides me, she has the most tribal knowledge in the building, and she has been, you know, a faithful friend and confidant, and, you know, a wonderful advisor. And she has the things that I don't. You know, she is incredibly organized, you know, incredibly organized, really great at being an amazing supporting role for me. You know, she knows me so well, so it's like she can finish my sentences and read my thoughts. Blade Lawson is our director of production. He's been with us for almost 7 years, and he's a young and very talented young man, and came to us from another food manufacturing facility, and so had a lot of experience already to apply. And he's just really just mechanically so smart, and I love the way his mind is, and he does a great job with our production crew. And you know, we have a great QA director, David Keeler. Again, really, you know, I head up R&D, but I kind of lack that scientific background that R&D needs. So David and I do a lot of collaboration there. He has a very, he has an in-depth scientific background of, food science. And so that's incredibly helpful. And then Rob McCormick, who is actually my business partner now. And Rob grew up here in Bellingham, and he's about 8 years younger than me. And it's funny because when I first started making breakfast cookies, he was in high school still.
Wow.
So weird. And he'd stop at Cruise and Coffee on his way up to the mountain and get a coffee and a breakfast cookie. And he loved the breakfast cookies in high school. And then Rob went to college. He went to Wazoo. Then he went out into the world. His first job was with Jones Soda. So he got this really cool job with this, great hip, forward-thinking company. And then he later after that went to work for 5 Hour Energy, and we're all familiar with those little energy shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Also another really innovative and interesting company. And he was director of global sales, so he got a lot of experience, in the global sales market. Rob and I connected about 6 years ago, and he said, "Hey, my wife and I want to move back to Bellingham. I'm from Bellingham. I love your cookies." And we talked for about a year before we decided to work together. And, we just have a great relationship and complement each other very much in terms of his strengths and my strengths. And, it's a true business partnership is something that you can't buy it. You're just lucky enough to find it.
Yeah.
And I have that, and it's really the best thing about my work is the people that I work with, and I love to come to work every day. So we've got a great team, and they're all really smart at things that I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So
finding your blind spots for sure.
Indeed.
So one of the cool things is that, you hear different business models, and obviously I've got my opinion, so I'm not going to dive too much into my opinion, but I'm very curious. We talk about culture, and culture is kind of this buzzword in corporate world or business world, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I like the word environment better.
Mm-hmm.
How have you created this ecosystem, this environment where people want to stay? I mean, that's one of the biggest things is obviously if someone wants to go, it sounds like you're supportive of people doing their thing, but you've created this world, you've continued to grow your world to accommodate the best of the best in your world here locally, at least, right? And so how do you do that? What is your secret recipe, to culture and environment? What's important to you about your culture and environment?
Well, we have a few words here that we use on a regular basis, and one is compassion, and the other is, the other two are, consistent communication. And when I set out to kind of reset the culture after my previous business partner left the business about 6 years ago, I really wanted to create a culture that was, really more representative of me and how I wanted things to be here. And it took a little while to really get that culture set, because most workplaces are, it's kind of a simple formula of here's your task list, do what I'm telling you to do, and do it right, and that's it. And it's not very often where and I mean, it's becoming more so, but 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I found that, a lot of employees would come in and they'd say wow, I've never had my boss ask me what I think, or if I have any ideas, or, how's your family, or how are you, or stop to talk to me, or spend time with me in the middle of the day, or, pay attention to me, show me attention. And so we really started acting in those ways, treating people the way we wanted to be treated. And that was our filter. But it's easier than you might, it's not as easy as you might think.
How so?
Well, for those that were in administrative roles and leadership roles, where there was a lot more dialogue about it and it was a lot more demonstratable, it was a little more difficult to infuse into our production staff. Bigger staff, a little bit more complicated in terms of management, and it was a little more difficult for people to grasp what it really meant. What does compassion mean? Compassion doesn't mean that you can come in late all the time.
There's a line.
Yeah, you still have to be responsible. You still have to be accountable. But compassion means that, hey, I want to hear about why you were late, and if we can make adjustments so that you can get to work on time. That's what compassion means. Compassion means I'm not going to fire you. Compassion means I want to hear about what's going on with you so that you can't make it to work on time. And so it took some time to really kind of get that message really infused into the staff. And those types, this type of culture can be a little messy at first, because people just don't, they're not familiar with it. They're not familiar with it, and people want it. But what they don't realize is they actually have to contribute to it also. Right. So they have to think about their coworkers, if we're down 5 people on the production floor, that means the production staff is here 2 hours longer.
That's
so,
a lot.
Yeah. So what we worked really hard with our staff is like, hey, come outside of your own bubble and treat people how you'd like to be treated. And, how would you feel if, your buddy called in sick because he just didn't want to go to work that day, but it made you have to work 2 hours longer? Oh, right. So it's just this kind of retraining of how we think about ourselves and how we think about others, and thinking of one another as a unit. We're a team. And how do you gain that cohesiveness within the team? And you help people understand that there are ramifications to acting in a way that when you're in a bubble.
Yeah. So so there's 2 worlds really there, and there's kind of a blend in between. There's this small business. So there's you and the one other person that was working with you. And at that point, it's probably pretty easy. Like, if you don't show up, this half of things don't happen. Or if I don't show up, this half of things don't happen. But as you spread that those tasks and all the things that need to get done to have the business move forward, you have more and more people that may be a little bit further out from the core of why things are happening. How do you continually remind people, or how do you find the right people that have that kind of the bug in their ear that, like, I'm doing this for something bigger than myself? And how do you give them autonomy to feel like they have a role and are not just kind of, part of the assembly line, right?
Yeah. Well, we do a lot here in the building. We have regular all company meetings where we update everybody on everything from, what's new in operations, what's happening in operations. We're looking at, key performance indicators on a regular basis, and sharing those, sharing that information with our team about how they're doing, with their efficiencies, celebrating wins, and, failing fast and trying again with losses. And, we have an open door policy here. Nobody sits behind closed doors. Both myself and Rob are available to anybody in the building at any time. I give my phone number to anybody that wants it here in the building. And, we interact with staff all day long. And I think it's really about making it safe so that people can feel safe to come to us and talk to us about what's going on for them, or where they're being challenged, talk about ideas. And, everybody just wants to be heard, and they want to feel like what they're saying has value. And it does. There's brilliance in everybody. And the more comfortable and safe people feel, the more brilliance that comes out, and that benefits everybody inside of the building. So, it's something that, first it's aspirational, and then you have to, create the system to execute that aspiration. And then you have to practice it every day. and support it every day and spend the money and the time to really get it solidified within the building and within, all the hearts and minds of everybody here.
Couldn't have said it better. Yeah. And for somebody like you too, takes my mind in this direction. For somebody like you that is so giving and supportive of the people in your world, not only are you trying to have you brought a product to the market that is making people's lives better, nutritionally, physically, energetically, whatever you want to say. But also, you only have so many hours in a day. So when you're first doing this, you're like the grunt work, the trench work, the CEO work, the CFO work, every single possible thing. You're doing all of that. And then you get to a point where you're doing this part, and then there's other people that are doing other parts. You have leverage in your business and can empower other people. How do you say no? Like how important is saying no, even when you're a giving person? How do you find that balance of being like, I have to prioritize this other thing versus this thing? How do you say no to people?
Well, there's a quote that I keep in the front of my mind at all times. I can't remember which book I read it in. I wish I could, but it was a couple years ago. And it said, the main thing is to remember to keep the main thing the main thing.
Love it.
And if you don't focus on your big initiatives, you tackle your big irons. If you're not putting enough energy and effort towards big initiatives, you're not moving the needle. And so it's so easy to get distracted, especially as a CEO or a founder, where, you have that autonomy to say, hey, I really want to start this project, or, hey, I really like this idea, or, hey, I want to, paint the break room or whatever, I run it through the filter of, is this contributing to the main thing? Is this contributing to what's most important right now? And that's really how I keep things prioritized. And it's hard because I am a, squirrel, I see something shiny and I go after it. And, the other thing too is people. If someone is hurting, if they're upset, I look at people's eyes and people's faces every day around here, right? And when I see somebody that's not happy, or something's going on for them, or if they need to talk to me, or if they have something really special to share, something really positive, I always make time for people, always. So, and I found that, I'm not going to end up in a room for 3 hours with somebody. Any of those conversations never take more than an hour, at the latest. So at the longest. So I think where I don't apply that prioritization is with people, because people are our most valuable resource. And it's where the magic happens. I know I keep going back to that, but the magic doesn't happen on the to-do list. The magic happens with the people. So with all the different things that I could get my fingers into, all the different things that I could research, all the different things that I can read, all the different people I can network with, it all goes through the filter of what's most important right now, and am I doing, and what is what I'm doing contributing to that?
So it's not just about other people, are they contributing to the big vision? It's about you as one person, as a part of that team. Are you also, even though you have a little bit more autonomy, or hypothetically would have a little bit more autonomy as the founder or the R&D person for the company, but you're also saying, you're looking at yourself as you would look at anybody else within your company and saying, whoa, this doesn't align with our values, or this doesn't align with our priorities right now. So it's really important to look at yourself as you're not on a different echelon by being the business owner. You have to look at it from a full world perspective, right?
For me, my filter is, remember to keep the main thing, and, what's most important right now. But I can say my staff is right behind me on that. There's no margin in this business. There's really not a lot of margin for error. And there's not a lot of margin for wasting time, burning time, wasting time, even on a daily basis. So everybody here, I think, is really definitely in support of that. So I can say we're all applying that to our work every day.
That's so awesome to hear. And let's talk a little bit about competition. So knowing that your business is unique, right? As an entrepreneur, finding product market fit, you have to be passionate about it. You have to be someone that actually really cares about what you're doing. So you have those two things. But then you're not the only person out there that's creating some sort of health food, right? So tell me a little bit about competition. I know there was something that happened with Kellogg early on in the business. Tell me about competition. Tell me about how you look at competition as an entrepreneur and what happened with that.
Well, competition is just that. I mean, competition is a healthy thing. I mean, if there wasn't, it certainly is, it keeps the fire going underneath us, and it inspires us. We see products that inspire us, and we create our own version of what inspires us. So competition's really good in that way, because it's just like this ongoing resource of new and innovative ideas. So it's certainly a positive thing for sure. It's funny. It's ironically, I actually have this because I was looking at it. So you can probably see this. This is a Quaker breakfast cookie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that happened, I think in 2005, maybe 2004, after they came to my booth at the Fancy Food Show, and they were like, "Oh, man, breakfast cookie, this is a good idea." And then they launched their product a couple of years later. And a couple years prior to that, speaking about Kellogg's, I came up with the first breakfast cookie in commerce. I mean, someone's grandma may have been making a breakfast cookie at home, but she wasn't selling it in grocery stores across the nation. Yep. So I decided to try to protect that mark of breakfast cookie. And I was advised by my attorney not to, because it was a very generic descriptive term, meaning there was nothing unique about it. Like, she always told me, like, you need to, like, Apple computers is a great example, because apples have nothing to do with computers. So it's a protectable mark. And so I went for it and decided to spend the money and try to gain the mark. And I was within 30 days of gaining that mark. And Kellogg's opposed the mark in the interest of just maintaining its generic form. And these huge companies have whole legal departments that troll these applications. They're looking for great ideas. They're looking for ideas that they can poach and use. And if they allow something like that to become a registration, then they can't use it. And that's the whole point of why they do it. And I had to walk away from the fight because their pockets were about a million miles deeper than mine. And so that was really disappointing, because it was just the beginning. It was just the beginning of my education of being a David in the world of Goliath. And the food business is it's really old school, and it's really kind of rigged, and it's certainly not rigged for a small company and a woman-owned business to thrive. I can say that. So it's truly been a battle and a labor of love for 27 years, and continues to be.
Talk to me about your mindset, because I mean, both of those things are amazing. Being a woman and owning a business are two imaginative, huge, unique opportunities, just like being a man and owning a company. There's all sorts of different opportunities with that, right? And tell me a little bit more about, you're stepping into this world and you're already getting pushback from a old school industry where it's like, well, this is the good old boys club. Tell me about, what is it like to be in a world, be super focused on your vision, and then have these like things that are a positive thing for pretty much everybody, except maybe the good old boys club. And then you have this situation where these things they make it difficult for you because you're, a smaller business and you're a woman, which is that's how you're born. You're born a woman. That's how you can't change that. You
Yeah.
know?
I think it echoes or mirrors the truth about life.
Mhm.
It's just how it is. It's just how it is. Life is not fair. Sometimes you get a leg up, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get knocked down, sometimes you get a hand up. It's just how it is. And you know, the only if we get too far down into that, like all this stuff has happened to me and I've been held down and I've been held back, it takes the attention away from what's most important. And what's most important is moving forward.
Yeah.
And I can say that my focus is more about the fact that I have been here for 27 years. And the statistic of, I don't even know what the statistic is, but I know it's pretty impressive. Like something like 3% of all small businesses survive 10 years. And even, it's an even small, I don't know, it's under 10%. I don't know, it's somewhere in there, survive 20 years.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I just keep bringing myself back to that. Like, you know what? No, I'm better than all of that. It doesn't define me. And I'm proving that by being here for 27 years with no investors, no help, no formal education, just myself and the people around me and a great product.
Incredible. It's incredible. And it's about reminding yourself and, having these checkpoints along the way of, hey, I'm still here. Wait, I'm still pinching yourself. I'm still here. You just mentioned something about investment, and a lot of businesses to get started, whether they're tech businesses or they're, or another cookie business or a health food company or a local business, whatever it is. A lot of people take on money or take on small business loans, and you haven't taken on any money from anybody.
Right.
That's got to feel
No,
amazing. How do you do that?
it does. Well, you know, okay, let's go to the blue bike because you mentioned blue bike.
Yeah.
So let's see, this was 1997. This was 4 years after I started, 1998. I was down in my space below Boundary Bay Brewery. I was using this, really piece of crap pizza oven. It was bad. Wouldn't hold temperature. You know, I could only get 4 sheet pans in it. It was a struggle. You know, if your oven is small, you can like mix and tray 4 times as fast as you can bake. So if your oven is a pinch point, it's a big problem. So, you know, that's when I was putting in like 16 hours a day, and I'm like, I have got to get a different oven. This is ridiculous. So at the time, remember going back to when I was living in San Francisco, I was waiting tables, but it was like fine dining. So I was making good money, and I bought a new car while I was down there. It was my first big purchase. I couldn't believe I even qualified for the loan. I bought myself a red Jeep Wrangler. It was amazing. So in the time between that and the time that I moved here, I had paid it off, and I had the title. And so I wrote a business plan. I worked with Tom Dorr up at the Small Business Development Center, wrote a business plan. I had 3 years of business under my belt. I had success to show. I had this collateral, and I went to, at the time it was Bank of Bellingham, for a $10,000 loan, and they turned me down. And so I sold my Jeep, and I delivered my cookies on that dang bike for like 6 months on that blue bike. I had an old Schwinn blue bike.
Did you at least have a couple gears? Was it a unicycle, or did it have two wheels? What were you doing?
It had 2 wheels. Yeah. No, it was just an old Schwinn bike. You know, it was my tool around town, and I put some big baskets on the back, and I had a big backpack, and I would just go up and down, all those little places. And then I found some old delivery van with a hole in the floor in Anacortes, and bought that. And I couldn't let anybody drive that because it was too dangerous. So I was the only one that could drive it. And so I forget what got us to this.
Oh, we were just talking about when you are going back to the doubling down and just doing the work, and you were We were talking about the oven and how the oven wasn't working, and then the Schwinn
Oh,
diet.
sorry. Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, so I sold the Jeep Wrangler. I got the money from the Jeep. I bought the ovens, and I just did what it took, and that was the only investment money I'd ever asked for, and I was turned down, and so I just figured out how to get through that roadblock, and I sold the only asset that I had and just kept moving forward. So it's been an incredible journey, though, not, just growing slowly but surely, and living here in Bellingham and employing people and enjoying this incredible area, and doing what I love, without having to go into deep debt, to keep a dream alive.
You were talking about cash flow earlier, and I mean, we're still going through this crazy time with COVID, and I don't want to really make this about COVID that much, but there are these things that happen economically, things that happen like COVID that might be health wise, but are now economic and political and all these things. But how important is profit and cash flow and having no debt? And because debt obviously affects those things, right? Paying back debt or eating into your profit margins. You had no debt, and so going into this, and maybe you had reserves and you had all this foundation set. How did you weather this storm going through COVID? Tell me more about that experience.
Well, the last 6 years have been really interesting for the company. There were a lot of big hurdles for us in the last 6 years, starting with the minimum wage increase. We relied pretty heavily on not at minimum wage, but a little higher than minimum wage for the bulk of our production staff, so weathering and shouldering a 40% increase over 4 years was a big thing for us. We're a nationally sold food product, and we weren't able to pass on those costs like local businesses were. I mean, the taxpayers of Washington State voted that law in, and I understand the reason for it, and I support it. Washington State businesses were able to pass some of those costs, if not all of those costs, on to the consumer that actually voted in the law. We weren't able to. So we have, our breakfast cookie still needs to be $1.79 across the country. So it was a really interesting and a big challenge for us to figure out how to make that work and to continue to be competitive on the shelves on a national level. So that was a big project over a period of 4 years. The other big project for us was the Food Modernization Safety Act, which was put through by the Obama administration, and basically making our food supply safer by requiring manufacturing facilities to actually prove that they're doing the food safety, that they're doing what they're saying they're doing, which was a pretty dramatic increase in what we had to do and the equipment that we had to do it with. So there were some really big costs associated with those two big projects. The other big project that we had was an ERP system, which is basically the system that runs the whole bakery. That was another part of traceability and, just functioning, bringing our systems forward so that we could function in a really efficient manner and to scale to grow. So those were three giant projects that we had to move through in the last 5 years that, just a lot of work inside the building, a lot of focus inside the building. So really, we weren't able to, do huge innovation and do a lot of stuff outside of the building. So going into COVID, we weren't really in a position where we had, had great, huge new launches and success and, cash rolling in, and, we were just coming off of getting ready for growth. COVID has definitely been very challenging for us, just like it has been for everybody else. But again, it shows the strength of our team, and we've been manufacturing from day one. We never shut down. Well, we didn't, we're an essential business. So we continued to manufacture, and everybody in the building remained healthy and united, and very grateful to be here, and very grateful to be continuing to, do what we do. We certainly saw a lot of disruption in supply chain and in the distribution chain, from getting our product, here from the bakery to the shelf. There was a lot of disruption in that distribution chain, so causing us a disruption in sales. So, again, I say that with a grain of salt, because I know that every other business out there, with the exception of construction, construction and recreation, I don't know, there's lots of businesses that are doing great right now, but then there are some that aren't. We experienced our fair share of challenges, but again, the only choice is to move forward and to adapt and to evolve, and that's what we're doing. And we have a wonderful staff here that is committed to that as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. Really, really curious about before COVID hit, you and I had met at Anne Marie's house, and we were talking about getting together for this podcast, this episode here.
Yeah.
Back in probably February, March.
January.
Oh my gosh, this year's flown by.
I know.
You were saying this is before COVID, and you were saying, I've got this product that I'm working on, and I time to get this out, and then I'm happy to go on the podcast. And I was like, Erin, the podcast is not more important than your new product? How I'm offended. But really, you created this new product. It's in Costco now. Tell everybody that's watching this, and tell me about.
Let me grab the package. I'll be right back.
Cool.
Here I am. So it's called the Better Cookie. This is the almond butter flavor. So this product, near and dear to my heart, I created this product because, I don't know, you get to your middle age, and I would say middle age is not a bad term, because if I'm in middle age, that means I'm going to be 102. And I'd really like to make it that far. So, but, I'm eating less gluten, less sugar, less refined products, basically. And so this product, the Better Cookie, is grain-free, gluten-free, paleo, and vegan.
All the things.
So what that means is no refined sugar, no grains, and we're utilizing ingredients like cassava flour, which is a root, and we're using almond flour, coconut oil, almond butter, coconut, nut butters, things like that, really dense nutrition. So we launched we had our first launch at Costco in the Pacific Northwest on March 18th.
Perfect
timing.
You timed that really
bad. No sampling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, sampling is really important at Costco, especially for a product that's healthy, right? Because people want to try it. But it went pretty good. It went pretty good. So we were pretty happy with the results, considering everything that was going on. The lack of traffic going through Costco, no sampling. So it went really well. And we've also launched at Sprouts, which is it's about a 350 store chain, not in Washington, but the Southwest California. And then the Better Cookie also launched in LA, in the LA region of Costco last month, and did rockin' good. So LA's a good place to launch a product like this. So we're looking forward to a lot more business with Costco with this product. We love to do business with Costco. They're a great partner for us. And we'll be launching this, nationally with other retailers as their buying offices open back up, which has been also such a bummer, because we worked hard on this product to get this ready for market, and all of a sudden, beginning of the year, when all these reviews were happening, category reviews, which only happen once a year, so if you miss it, you've got to wait an entire calendar year to represent. buying offices were closed and buyers were not looking at new products. Grocery stores were not even going to think about bringing in new products. So it's interesting when you think you've got an ace in the hole, right? It's all the buzzwords. I mean, it's not only is it vegan, it's paleo. Not only is it paleo, but it's grain-free and gluten-free. So we knew we had a great product, and we knew we had something that could be kind of a unicorn, in a way, that if there's enough dietary designations, it's going to do well, especially if it tastes good. And it just came to a screeching halt. So, and I would have seen this coming ever. So, but we have two flavors. We have the salted chocolate cashew, and we have almond butter as a second flavor.
Something good.
Yeah, I would have to say they're quite delicious. So you'll be seeing them, Bellingham audience, you'll be seeing them out and about. Hopefully Hagen will be bringing them in. Hagen and Co-op will hopefully be bringing them in soon.
So Costco, obviously you can buy them on your online store.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. All of those links and details will be in the comments below, and every press release we do will have all the links to be able to find everything that is Erin Baker's Wholesome Baked Goods. So I'm really excited. And I'm really excited because I haven't actually had a chance to try them, and I actually have not been eating gluten for five years. I get really sick. So those sound delicious. So I'll have to pick up a case of those from you, or box, or wherever they come in.
Just stop by the bakery and see me.
What's that?
You can stop by the bakery and see me.
Sounds awesome. So, Erin, what is next for your company? What are you looking forward to in the future for your company, for Bellingham? What are you looking forward towards?
My big, hairy, audacious goal, those of us that are in the entrepreneurial world know that term BHAG. My big, hairy, audacious goal is always is for Baker to be the next Quaker. And, that's where I'd love to take this company, to be a household name, a trusted household name in every kitchen in America. For parents to say, I buy this product because I know Erin Baker. I know that she makes great food, and I know that she wouldn't make something that she wouldn't eat herself. And I think that the food world on a large scale lacks that greatly. Large food companies are controlled by shareholders and profitable needs, and poor decisions are made. You spoke earlier about, what's wrong with our food system. Our food was industrialized, and it was designed, after the war, in the 50s, was industrialized, and it was designed to sit on the shelf for 12 months. Oh, that's a great idea because we can make more money. We can make everything in centralized locations. We can ship it on rail cars. We don't have to get it there fast before it spoils. That's when artificial flavorings came in. That's when artificial colorings came in. That's when, farming became really, not good. And, much of the food that's out there in packages, there's nothing alive about it. There's nothing nourishing about it. And it's a great big problem that we have in this country, is that we're largely eating food out of packages, and most of that food is really, really not good for us. And so Rob and I really want to bring an honest and truthful and healthy food to the American family. And that's what's next. How long it'll take us to get there, I don't know, but we're making a dent in it. Another thing that we do, and something that is so important and so core to who we are, is we feed kids at the Boys and Girls Clubs. And about 10 years ago, I decided to be a parent in a different way other than just the traditional way of having my own children. And I went to the Boys and Girls Clubs, and I saw what was happening there. And they were, all these little kids were flocking around these vending machines that were there because, the people that owned the vending machines built the gym. So therefore they could have their vending machines there. And what's in the vending machines? Candy and soda. And these little kids are spending what little money they had on candy and soda. And I said to the director, I said, I'd really like to help here. Can I bring you breakfast cookies? And that was 11 years ago. And to date, we have donated almost 800,000 cookies to 18 clubs, in Washington State. And basically, it's the one snack that kids have access to 24/7 at the Boys and Girls Clubs. 60% of the kids at the clubs are food insecure. And what that means is that they do not know where their next meal or snack is coming from. They could very well go home and have bare shelves and no parent at home to feed them. So they're going home with breakfast cookies in their backpacks. They're going home on the weekends with breakfast cookies in their backpacks. They're going to school in the morning with breakfast cookies in their backpacks. They're eating breakfast cookies while they're at the club. I mean, the food programs have definitely improved at the clubs since we started this program. Heather Powell and her incredible team that take care of the kids in Whatcom County do a wonderful job with the food now. And it's really changing, but the breakfast cookie is a staple healthy snack for the kids, and it has been for 11 years. And it's simply a percentage of our sales, and our give is consistent with other large companies like General Mills to children's programs. So the more product we sell, the more cookies we donate, and we just simply ship them to the clubs every month.
It's amazing.
So, that's the other big thing, and that's our effort to reduce childhood obesity, to reduce childhood, food insecurity, and to show kids, to habituate them to food that actually has food value in it. Most kids are habituated to high sugar content, high fat content, foods that should only be eaten on a very special occasion and in moderation at that. And they're not. They're eating it multiple times a day. And this, they think a banana Pop-Tart is what a banana tastes like. No, that's not. It's not what it, and they don't like a banana, because it doesn't taste like the sugar, rocket that's in their mouth. So the other, big point that I was trying to make is, let's get these kids' taste buds back to where they should be, and where their body is craving whole food and not the candy bar.
Right.
So it's been an incredible journey with Boys and Girls Clubs. They're an amazing organization. I mean, talk about selfless and incredible leadership. They're raising this country's youth, truly. And we're honored to be working with them to help them raise these kids.
It's very inspiring. It has to be a part of your business, is how can you, not only how can you grow it, but how can you impact your community? And so thank you so much for your contribution to our next generation. It's just amazing. I'm also just, my mind's a little bit blown. I'm trying to imagine, it's like a math equation of how many, if you stacked 800,000 cookies in one room, what that would look like.
It's a lot of cookies.
A lot of cookies.
11,000 a month.
It's a lot. It's a lot of cookies, but a lot of nutrition. So thank you so much for that. And Erin, thank you for joining me from your, as David Attenborough would say, from your natural habitat.
Natural habitat.
That was.
No, you said it better. You say it again.
Oh, thank you for joining us from your natural habitat. He's got a little bit more theatrical British voice, but
that's awesome. I love it.
Erin, thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable and taking some time with us today from probably innovating and baking some more cookies. And for those of you that are watching this, thank you so much for joining us. And obviously, if you have any questions for Erin, you can contact her.
You know where to find me.
In the kitchen there baking cookies. Contact us if you have any questions. Obviously, for those of you that are looking for an amazing solution for breakfast or for snacks, because I know I'm a big snacker. I eat a lot of food. I snack a lot. So for any questions, we'll be putting all of the links to Erin's company to be able to find the products that you want on our website through that. This is live streamed on Facebook. So thank you for joining us today, everyone, for our live audience. And then obviously, if you missed part of this, go to YouTube, and it will be on Spotify. It will be on Stitcher. It will be on Apple Podcasts, all of the above. So thank you. What's that?
Forever.
Forever. It's here forever.
Yeah.
Erin, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And everyone, thanks for watching.
Thanks, you guys.
Building Bellingham is a community podcast exploring leadership, challenges, failures, and business with entrepreneurs right here in Bellingham, Washington. You can watch interviews live and be the first to hear about upcoming guests on the Building Bellingham Facebook and Instagram pages. Again, I'm your host, Leo Cohen of the Cohen Group Northwest. This episode was produced and edited by Cooper Hansley and Tiffany Holden. Our logo was designed by Sam Vogt. To learn more about the team behind the podcast, search Cohen Group NW on Google, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn.